first series we'll take a look at, it's the Blue Oval Saloon Series. Ashley Bird got pole position from college tester Martin Davies in third, making it Sierra. It's on top three. Craig Rayner was the best one on Sierra in his Escort Mark II. He will start fourth for the first race. Blue Oval Saloon probably the biggest gain in grid size compared to all 26 cars line up for the start of race 1. So here we go then, they're away for the first time. Ashley Bird making the better start. There's the 26 cars headed down to Gerrard for the first time. 18 cars took to the finish of race 1, a few retirements there were in the race. Ashley Bird, Colin Tester and Craig Rayner was the battle for the lead in the first few laps of the race. Craig Rayner trying to go with the two championship contenders. David Mathias leading the rest of the pack. Rain came down, Colin Tester took to the grass and the car rotated. And the Bird beat Rayner and Tester at the end of the race. Race 2 now, on board for the start with the poleman Ashley Bird. Make it safely through Gerrard's for the first time of asking. Craig Rayner stuck alongside him, and that would be the battle for the lead as the race went on. Craig Rayner having a good go around the outside at Gerrard's and able to do it. David Mathias go with them, and in the fourth position it was Colin Tester. 16 cars finished this in the second race of the day. Ashley Bird just holding up Craig Rayner in these early stages of the race. David Mathias, the escort, of course, would go with them. Craig Rayner every time trying to round the outside into Gerrard, but Ashley Bird staying in front. Then Lappery would come a issue as the race went on with lots of Fiestas out there. Only the top 8 cars would finish on the lead lap. Again, Craig Rayner tried round the outside, couldn't do anything. Piers Grange in the 47 Escort had a spin. He would finish 8th and 3rd in Class 2. The race went on, Ashley Bird would take victory just to Craig Rayner, and Colin Test would finish 3rd. Class 2 winner would be Paul Neville. Class 3, John Edwards Parton in his Fiesta, and Class 4, Brian Long. There's a bit of Fiesta shenanigans down at Gerrard with a spin there for Rob Taylor. And Fiesta's taken to the grass as well. Bird would have to lap these Fiestas. She head down towards the S's. Classic Thunder now then. We ride on board with Josh Ronsetti, who is out in the Talbot Sunbeam for the first time in 2012 in the Classic Thunder series. He went around the outside of everybody at Gerrard's for the first time. 18 cars out there in Classic Thunder. At the front, it was the Skyline versus the BMW M3. Mark Biggers versus Dan Stringfellow. Dan Bly flying there into 3rd position as they headed into the S's for the first time. Gary Whitaker also managed to find a way through, the leader in Class B, and he would win the race in that class, and Josh Ronsetti would win Class C. Will Dobson get very close to the back of him, thanks to the hairpin. They headed into the Devil's Elbow for the first time. AJ Owen now in the battle there with Colin Tester. The 2nd in Class B, 9th overall the battle with. They head through Gerrard's. Josh Ronsetti sitting down Bly, lock up in front of him into Shaw's hairpin. Vaughan Fletcher battling away with Paul Dobson. Setti overtaking the troubled BMW M3 of Dan Stringfellow, which retired. Good battle broke out between Setti and Fletcher for 4th position. Here heading through the Devil's Elbow. And the more powerful Subaru pulling up alongside and going through. Meanwhile, AJ Owen ended up having a battle with Stuart Day then. Stuart Day in the Ford Escort Class A machine. AJ Owen getting him back through Gerrard's. Fletcher Setti battle continued, headed down toward Heaven, and then for the final lap into the Devil's Elbow. Not final lap quite yet, look, a few laps. Subaru's just about to stay in front. Now this, I think, is the final lap of the race, yes. But Setti having a better exit. Up the hairpin to the Devil's Elbow, round the outside he went. And Setti just beating Fletcher. But it was Mark Biggers that won the race overall to Gary Whittaker and Darren Bly. Colin Tester had a spin at Gerrard's on that one of the second race. Mark Biggers there though in the Escort, leading Gary Whittaker in the early stages, and that is how the top two would finish. Mark Biggers beating Gary Whittaker in race 2. Only 12 cars finished the second race of the weekend. Dan Stringfellow would finish third. Right, moving on now to the pre-93 touring cars. 32 cars out there, a full grid in qualifying, only 28 cars allowed to start. Off early on for the man down at the Shaw's hairpin. It got very busy on lap 1. Jack Stamford from the back of the grid making his way up, even though he got the fastest time in qualifying. Because he was a reserve, he had to wait on the back of the grid to see if he was going to start. He did, but he would have to start fourth from the back, like I say. The battle lead between Mallory, Dunster, Mark Fowler and Rich Miller went on at the front of the very big grid. Simon Sheridan doing his usual super driving in the Ford Fiesta XR2 and winning Class E. He finished 13th overall in that car. Meanwhile at the front, Laurie Dunster would take the victory from Paul Bellamy, and Steve Cripps in the Ford Escort RS 2000 having a great time. He finished third. Jack Stamford made his way up to 6th by the end. Michael Sheridan making his way through Gerrard's and spinning the car. Then he would be lapped by the race leaders as they made their way through. And we turn our attentions to race 2. Laurie Dunster again going from the front. With Jack Stamford in the 11 making his way round the outside. Bellamy though is there in second as everyone rushed through Gerrard for the first time. Fowler around the outside of the Rover Tomcat. Bellamy was an early retirement, and it ended up with Laurie Dunster went to Jack Stamford and Michael White. We move our attention now to the Group 1 touring cars and Post Historics. 23 cars out into this one. They make their way around Gerrard for the first time. Great quintet of cars at the front, being led by Tim Scott Andrews in the Rover from Jim Levine in the Capri and David Howard in the Jaguar. Race 1 was won by Jim McLaughlin in the end in the Capri, and Tim Scott Andrews and Steve Cripps. On to race 2 now. So 16 cars get to the end of the weekend. Tim Scott Andrews leading early on. McLaughlin coming under pressure for Cripps there into Gerrard's. Cripps looking to gain a position. Tim Scott Andrews just defended Steve Cripps off on this lap. Cripps looking up a new race leader, and it is the Jaguar of David Howard. Howard just holding on to the middle. Howard racing in the post-historic and had all the cars around him in the Group 1s. David Howard behind McLaughlin, and then he had the Rover Vitesse of Steve Andrews trying to find a way past him. Then Lafferty come into play. Howard down to 3rd by this time. Cripps and Hickston behind him. Jim Logan 1 to Thomas Andrews and David Howard. Now we move our attentions to the classic Saloon and historic touring cars. Leading away Phil Manser to the 2 Sprigs, but it was a spin for the Mini Marcus which would be collected early on by the Austin E40. It was a retirement there for the 45 of Ken Self in the Mini Marcus. So race was going to be stopped and restarted. We would try all over again. As the cars lead away through Gerrard's. Audience can be Mini versus Cortina versus Angular. Phil Manson, the Mini. The Cortina drove by Stephen Sprigg and the Angular drove by Richard Sprigg. The trio of cars battled it out, almost contact between the 2 Spriggs through Gerrard's. Lafferty came into play, lock it up there. The wild Angular of Richard Sprigg made their way through Gerrard's. Trio all fighting for victory, with lap cars to get in the way as well. Cortina just down in front of Phil Manser there in the Mini. Eventually won by Stephen Sprigg in the Cortina, just to Phil Manser in the Mini, and 3rd Richard Sprigg in the Angular. Race 2 would be won by Richard Sprigg in the Angular, Stephen Sprigg in the Cortina, Phil Manser in the Mini. Trio dominating the races. Finally, the final championship here at the Classic Touring Car Festival, the Alfa Romeo Owners Club Series. Starting from pole, Nick Starkey in the GT Junior, Rod Shaw in the Romeo GT AM, Bob Trotter in the Alfa, and our onboard Richard Morrell in the Julia. The cars make their way down towards the S's for the first time. Great scraps. Still to go in the 15-minute race, as all the races are at the Classic Touring Car Racing Festival at Mallory Park for the 2nd year. Moving away from Lily Hill, and the wonderful Ross Shaw Alfa Romeo GTAM just in front of Merrill. They could lead with lap 1. Nick Starkey led from Bob Trotter in the Alfetta. Cars out there, the best grid so far for the Alfas. Battle on, and Bob Trotter fell back, and obviously going to lose another position to Rich Merrill, not this time into the S's. Back down towards the hairpin. Also in the battle, Steve Fletcher in the 33, just behind. Trotter just defending the line, and a slow out the corner. Through goes Merrill. Just defended to the car behind. Race was won in the end by Nick Starkey, just a Ross Shaw and Richard Merrill got 3rd. Race 2 now. Where they go? Nick Starkey off from the the front. Led to Rosshaw. In fact, the better start coming from the GTAM of Rosshaw, but then Nick Starkey fighting back down towards the S's. Positions would change again. Good scrap for the lead on lap 1 between the GT June and the GTAM. Richard Merrill just behind them in the Julia. They head down the hairpin. Top pack all bunched up under braking. The trio of cars would break away, but they stayed in the same order. Nick Starkey winning from Rosshaw and Richard Merrill. A good scrap between the three of them and through the Lapri, of course.